Hello and welcome to the Rogue Monkey podcast. It's great to have you with us today for another inspirational story. And this week we have got an incredible person joining us. Chris Martin is an incredible endurance athlete, but also an incredible human being. Working for north of 25 years in the ambulance service, he's forged many paths and taken on many challenges, including growing one of the biggest blue light channels on YouTube. I'm joined by Chris today to explore that experience, but more so the earth-shattering news that he got last year when he found out he had cancer. In our conversation today, we explore what that news meant to him, his family, his friends around him, and we dive into the journey of what it was like to get back from that really challenging space and back on his feet and into the world of running. Now, over the next couple of weeks, Chris will actually be taking on a 26.2 mile challenge, taking on the London Marathon. But for us, it's a really human conversation. You know, I've been out for a few runs with Chris and one of our former guests, James Ball, a number of times, and they're both absolutely incredible guys who really kind of open up, wear their heart on their sleeve and tell you it as it is. So I really hope you take a lot from today's conversation. We're going to get straight into it and our latest episode with runner and cancer survivor, Chris Martin. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Kevin. Nice to be here.
Really grateful for you sharing some time with us. We've got a few weeks to go to a big challenge in your life when it comes to active lifestyles, I guess, because I know you're a very active guy, but I don't know if you just want to give our viewers and listeners, I guess, just a little bit of an introduction to set the frame for today's discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, my name's Chris Martin. As in terms of active lifestyle, I've been a paramedic for the last kind of 25 years. So I've always been out and about and fairly active, avid rugby player from the age of 18 all the way through till my knees gave out. And then the last few years, 5, 6, 7 years, I've been well into my running, getting into my running, my distance running, as a way of just putting the world to rights and getting out on the weekends. That was me, just all about myself and the running. The challenge for me coming up, as you mentioned, is because obviously I had a bit of a roller coaster of a summer when I went through some cancer treatment, found a lump, discovered it was cancer, and this year has all been about just getting through the treatment, getting over that, and setting some milestones to get myself back onto the road to recovery.
Literally a road to recovery, going for a 26-mile jog around London. And I know when we've been out on our runs, the short jogs quite quickly turn into bigger than half marathons quite quickly. So I'm curious, obviously, I guess from a lifestyle point of view, like sport, active and health is a huge part of your life. Like, where did all that kind of come from? Like, was it a part of your childhood or was it something you came to a bit later?
No, yeah, sport was always part of our childhood. My dad was an NFA football coach. I grew up playing football just as a child, and then going through school, discovered rugby, and then joined the Colts and the local rugby team here, Hitchin. I joined them when I was 18. And quickly moved into the first team from there, where I made some lifelong friends as well, which hopefully we'll talk about in a bit. And then just played rugby for about 15, 20 years for them. And it was just great. It was just a way of keeping active. It was training twice a week. It was playing on the weekends, away on rugby tours as well, and doing that, which was great. So I've always been active and sporty from childhood. So it's just something that I've always done.
It's, obviously, you can't you can reverse engineer, but you certainly can't forward engineer these things of knowing where all those skills from sport, you know, the goal setting, the resilience and the friends, like you said, that when you're going to need them. So I guess now reverse engineering and looking back, what are some of the things that those early years, formative years of sport and activity kind of brought to your life that you've now looked back and gone, wow, that's really put me in good stead?
For me, it's the team mentality. It's the togetherness of what a team can bring, not just when it's needed the most in your personal life, but it's some of those skills that translate just into work life as well. Just what it means to be part of a team, rely on other people. And it's fairly simplistic to be able to translate what you do in a sport team and being able to rely on each other and being in the right positions and playing the right moves. But actually, translating that into the work life, you really do just appreciate and can see who it is that's a team player, who it is that's there for the right reasons, who wants to be there. And so now more so than ever, translating those lifelong friendships into when you need them the most, when the chips are really down, when you do feel that, you know, everything's against you. It's that team mentality of those people that you've played alongside with for decades that are always there for you. Even if it's just a little message, even if it's just on a group chat, and it bucks you up again. It brings those energy levels back up, and it just makes you realise, you know, people are there for you when you need them to. So that team mentality, that togetherness, is what I reflect on most is that I've appreciated the most over the last couple of years.
We talked about the fact there that it obviously translates into the work world, and I do a lot of talk for sporting parents. I guess perhaps looking down the lens of the here and now and winning the cup and qualifying for the team and all these sorts of things, and perhaps don't see the bigger picture of what comes next in terms of your career. So perhaps let's talk about that transition point from going, that academic journey, if you like, to going into this kind of health paramedic space and actually what that looks like. Because I think, again, a lot of people perhaps see these different roles over here and see what they're doing at school and college and can't really join the dots between the two. So what did that journey look like for you?
So I kind of fell into medicine more accidentally than on purpose because, and this is, I've got children as well, I've got 3 teenage sons. And growing up, looking at my academic world, it was always a case of you had to know what you wanted to do. You had to kind of have a target, have a goal and get there and work your way through. And I went through A-levels and didn't really know what I was doing. I went to college for 2 years and still didn't really have a goal. And it was only really second year I did sports medicine at college. And during the second year, we specialised in sports medicine. So I did sports science at college, and second year we specialised in sports medicine. It was only then that I realised I actually quite liked all the anatomy, physiology side of it, the muscles, and but by then I was not quite on the right road academically to go into doctoring world. So I just had a quick look around to see how I could apply it without getting stuck in the clinic anywhere. And the ambulance service really appealed because it was out in the community, it was the driving aspect of it, it was the treating people in their own homes, it was the emergency medicine side of it that I really liked. And as I worked my way through the career, so I started at base entry level at trainee emergency medical technician, and I've been in the service 25 years now, and I've worked my way through to head of quality improvement, deputy director level, consultant paramedic level. I've got 2 master's degrees, and they all kind of fell into place just working my way through academically. Initially, it was all just about the next shift, the next job, what can I do? I'm on an ambulance, I'm on a car, but steadily it just progressed to the bigger picture of actually this is a career for life for me. So actually, what do I want to get out of it? What do I want to achieve? It was setting myself some goals as to, right, so I've done, say, 10 years on the ambulances. Now I want to work my way through to leadership and management and start to give something back, start to teach the next generation, start to shape the future of what the ambulance service looked like. And luckily, I'm in a position where I've been able to do that. So it's really worked out well for me to be able to now shape the future of the ambulance service, especially locally as well. So it was more just a way of, I try to teach my sons now that you don't have to have a goal immediately. You find out what makes you happy, and stick around doing things like that, because you want to get through life enjoying yourself. And if you can find a job that you enjoy and you get through, then even better. And so that's where I try and drive that focus now. It's not about, you have to have those A-levels so you can definitely be a lawyer or you can do this. No, actually, let's just do what makes you happy, and the rest of it will fall into place.
I like that message, kind of that, it sounds cliche, but that trust in the process, but also that, at 16, 17, 18, maybe you don't have it figured out, and that's okay. So I think that
exactly that, yeah. And some people do, and some people go through their was going, no, I definitely want to be a lawyer. This is what holds interest for me. And if you find that early, then absolutely great. But in this day and age, you've got time on your side. Just like you said, trust in the process, allow it to fall through, and what you enjoy will ultimately lead to opening some doors.
So I guess there's a side tangent to this, because mindful of how long you've been in the service. 25 years ago YouTube wasn't a thing, and obviously there's this kind of little side spin-off that certainly wasn't planned. But I don't know if you just want to touch on that, because I know when we first went out running and James was telling me about it, and I was like, this is cool. Like, how did this all come about?
Yeah, so the YouTube channel Chris Martin EMS came about fairly accidentally again as well, because the blue light driving and seeing what both police, fire, ambulance have to do in terms of just blue light driving, the skills it takes, and the concentration it takes. It wasn't really something that was available to watch or see or train. It's one of these things, until you actually get out there doing it, you don't really have an awareness of it. And it was about, I think it must have been about 10 years ago, I was on a blue light journey and I had a little crash. It wasn't major, it was just a little bit of a fender bender, nothing drastic, but, and luckily the insurance paid off. But I just said to myself, right, I've got no way of proving to myself who was at fault here. Were my exemptions okay? Was I adhering to my training? When you're on scene on a clinical incident, there's about 3 or 4 other people around all the time. So if you make a mistake, you run over to it, but other people see it. But blue light driving, you kind of, especially in a car, you're on your own. So I had no way of proving that I was using my exemptions okay and that the crash wasn't my fault. So I sought permission from my trust, and I put a GoPro just on my windscreen just to capture my blue light journeys, just so that I had evidence base there of what I was doing. And I started collecting all of this footage about what I was doing, why I was doing it. So, but I wasn't doing anything. So I went to my media team, my digital team, and just said, would you mind if I publish these driving videos? Obviously subject to policy and no patient details in there, no destination, no treatment, etc. But if I can demonstrate the thinking process, the thought process behind what am I doing, how am I thinking, what decisions I'm making when I'm going round cars or round bollards or 60 mile an hour round a roundabout, wouldn't do that. But it's those kind of advanced driving skills that you say, well, it's not out there. So I created a video, put it online, had permission from obviously our media team and my line manager. And it went down really well. It seemed to get quite a few likes and follows. And so it just kind of snowballed from there. I created another one, tried to mix it up with, right, this is my decision making around traffic lights and my decision making around heavy traffic, and this is how I weave through traffic, etc. And it seemed to go down all right. It seemed to go okay. People quite liked it. So I'm 60,000 followers in, and it's going okay so far. So that's all it really is. It was just to raise awareness of this is what blue light drivers have to do before they get to a scene. I think the biggest reflection for me is the appreciation that people understand that obviously you do the blue light driving and it's quite intense and the level of concentration is quite high. The video ends, but the amount of comments that come in to say it's really quite refreshing to know that actually you've done that, and then you have to treat a patient at the end of it.
It's really cool, and like, hey, getting to 60,000 subs on YouTube is not easy, but it is super cool, like you say, to give that insight, to humanize it a little bit. I think often, we label, organizations and things like that and assume, we understand it. And like you say, it wasn't that long ago that unless you did the course, you wouldn't understand it. You'd never get an insight to it. So it certainly is, I guess, like with podcasting, pulls back the curtain a little bit and tells the story behind the scenes.
And this is it. So you do some of it on the highway code and you get some of it in your lessons, but and you get a police car and ambulance blast past you at some point, and they're like, oh right, here they go again, bossing their way through traffic. But like I said, it was just a way of humanising the element that actually you've got people in these ambulances that are just trying to get somewhere quickly to try and save a life. So
let's jump forwards a little bit, because obviously there's some nice stuff in there, and obviously we all hope for the best, but I guess the life skills element of what you've been on up to last summer had been preparing you for the worst. So let's just talk a little bit about that kind of journey first, and the lead up to diagnosis in the first place, because again, I think we've had quite a few people who've had cancer on the show, and that process of I'm not sure about something and what do I do about it is often the first hurdle to even get past before you even find out any more information about it.
Yeah, definitely. And the old adage of a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. Doing something in the clinical world, in the medical world, if things pop up, then quite often I don't tend to ignore them. I don't have that mentality of, it'll be all right, it'll just work itself out. Actually, having that little bit of knowledge that now this needs looking at and needs investigating. But the biggest shock for me was just, again, for the lifestyle, never smoked, always been very active, obviously ultra and marathon training. You just think something like this will never happen to me. It was that mentality of, no, I won't get cancer. It won't happen, but it obviously does. I'm human as everyone else. So diagnosis-wise, journey-wise, it just, for me, it literally started with an enlarged lymph node on my neck. Came up in about February time and didn't go away for a couple of weeks. But there was no other symptoms. I had no sore throat, no cough, no speech problems, no swallowing problems, nothing like that. So the only thing that came up was this lymph node, and it stayed there for a few weeks. And after kind of 2, 3, 4 weeks, I was like, right, yeah, no, this should have gone by now. And so I just spoke to the GP. I spoke to a GP, and actually it was out of hours, and they sent me down to an out of hours GP just to have a roll of it, just to make sure it was what they thought it was, just a lymph node. It was just a large lymph. But because of the time it hadn't gone away, they just put the role, they started the process from there. So it was the referral to the head and neck team. It was referral for an ultrasound. And I can't thank the medical staff enough, because every clinician that I saw was really proactive in starting the next step early so that the timeline came forward. So everything from that first GP who said, right, well, I'll refer you for an ultrasound, but I'll refer you to the head and neck team at the same time so that brings that timeline forward. And so by the time I had the ultrasound, who said, yeah, it's just a lymph, but it's enlarged, we don't know what it is, the referral for the head and neck team was already in place. So it was then seeing them a couple of weeks later. And then even to the doctor that was meant to do the needle biopsy, he just said, well, needle biopsies can sometimes be a bit inaccurate, so I'm going to do a core biopsy instead. So instead of just doing a needle, he took 3 cores from it, which is a lot more accurate. And then, a couple of weeks after that, I got the call to go in and see the team, who said, it's cancerous. We've found cancer cells within the lymph. We just need to find the primary. So it was in for the CT scans and the PET CT scans. And they found it on my tonsil, of all places. What turns out to be a fairly common cancer. But because it was growing outwards, which is why I had no other signs and symptoms. Normally, sometimes they go inwards. That's when you get the cough, swallowing problems, speech problems. Because mine was growing outwards, I'd had nothing in there at all. But because the lymph node had come up and I'd done something about it, I'd caught it fairly early, which was great. So we were able to start going through treatment fairly rapidly to get it sorted, which was good. But that involved 2 rounds of chemotherapy and 6 weeks of intense radiation therapy on my neck.
Okay, so obviously as much or as little as you want to share here, but I want, you talking very much like a clinician there and taking us through the clinical journey of it, which is, I know how, having had many friends and family go through that journey, it's you use the science to try and make sense of it all, but equally there's this human element of the worry, the concern, but not just for you. And I'm mindful you mentioned obviously being a parent earlier. So from that experience, from processing what it could be to finding out what it was, how did you navigate that from a family point of view?
So from a family point of view was very challenging, because we've had our family challenges as well. So during the diagnosis in April, I ran the London Marathon in April 24, and I was running that on behalf of cystic fibrosis. Because the year or 2 years beforehand, my eldest had a diagnosis of cystic fibrosis very late on in his life. And so that emotional roller coaster of that diagnosis of someone else, of a family member, again, was a lot more up down. I was feeling it a lot more as a parent. It wasn't me. So we were going through the challenges of how do we deal with it, how do we talk to it, we're open about it. But then, the emotional roller coaster as a father, having to deal with that. And then this time round, it came to me, and it was a case of, actually, I know what's going on. I know what the treatment I'm going to go through. But then I could see my family looking at me going through the same emotions. And so a lot of what I was doing was, you say I tried to treat it fairly clinically. In a way I did. It was a case of, it was quite matter of fact. It was a case of, right, well, I've got cancer. This is the treatment. This is what I'm going to go through. This is what I'm doing. And we presented that to the boys to say, right, this is what I've got. It's going to be okay, because this is what will happen. This is the treatment plan, and this is what we'll go through. And so it was almost trying to stay fairly strong for them, but being very honest with them, very open, just to say, this is what I've got. This is where it is. There was no secrets to it. They knew what was coming up so that they could prepare themselves for the treatment, because my consultant was very open and honest with me to say, it's going to be a horrible journey. It's going to hurt. You're going to be in pain. You're going to lose weight, etc. And so it was preparing the boys to see that in me. As a father, I've always been trying to treat myself fairly strong. They've been around me where, as a paramedic, as a player, as a runner, I've always been fairly strong and there for them. And they were going to see me at my weakest and my most vulnerable, which I don't mind, as it happens, but it was just having that preparation for them. So a lot of dealing with the family side of it was almost being strong for them, but it did allow me the time. And this is where some of the running came into play, and some of those close friends that I had. It was that reflection of, actually, I need to deal with it with me. I need to put it in the right box. I need to put it in the right frame of mind so that I can actually deal with it. And so going out for my runs on the weekends, I think you've had James Ball. You've had him on here before. Excuse me. So James is a very close friend of mine, and played rugby with him since I was kind of 18. So we've known each other for nearly 30 years. And it's him that I go out running with on the weekend. And he's a very good sounding board to bounce stuff off. He puts things in context. He allows you to just talk, and he'll listen, and then he'll reflect back, and he'll put things in context. And it allowed me the opportunity to just put myself in the right frame of mind, so that I didn't have any sort of pent-up feelings. I wasn't keeping anything inside. I was able just to get everything out, so that I could deal with it, both myself and then for my family as well. And I think that's what really helped. It was that nothing was hidden, nothing was not talked about, whether it was with my wife or my boys or with James. Everything was just out in the open, and it was just, this is what it is. This is how we deal with it. I know who was there for me. And if I needed to talk, I knew where I could go. And that was what was really important. And I think that's why I was able to go through it fairly comfortably, albeit that, it hurt and it was a rocky road. But emotionally, I've come out on the other side stronger, because I had that support network around me, and I acknowledged what was going on, acknowledged what I had to go through. and use the people around me to put it into the right context.
I think that's incredibly powerful for a lot of people to hear, because I think there is, and again, we're in that kind of, I guess, maybe split from a generational point of view of, no, just head down and crack on and let's not talk about it. And, when James and one of our other colleagues, Matt, came on and spoke quite openly from the men's mental health side of things, there is that kind of stigma associated with, if you're struggling, just crack on. And actually...
Yeah. And it was exactly that. So we both joined the services. The relative side joined the ambulance service. At the same time, James joined the fire service. And it was back then, 25 years ago, it was a case of, keep your mouth shut, get on with your job. You've seen something horrible. That's the job. Move on, get on with the next thing. You didn't really open up about how you were feeling, how it affected you, what was going on. And it was definitely a generational thing where it's taken a couple of decades for us to get to this point of saying, actually, it's okay to talk about. Just because I'm a man doesn't mean that everything I see doesn't affect me, and it very much does. So, the generational bit has taken some time to get over. But again, having people like James and Matt and other people that understand that, advocate for it, champion it, and that I've been lucky enough to be running with every other weekend, that has really helped.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I know it's a horrible thing to go through. And, you talked to, I've been at an event recently where, again, we were dealing with parents in their 30s, 40s and 50s that were going through cancer, and you just you don't know what to say. And it's that fine balance that Bully does so well of actually being able to listen, but not try and fix it for you. Actually just go, look, just talk to me, and I'm here as a space. And I think that, again, it's a very, maybe in this kind of polished Instagram world that we live in, like sometimes people want to solve everything for you. And actually it's like, that's not what I need. They've got the doctors doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And this is it. It's a case of, look, I know I'm going to get through the other side. It's a journey that I'm going to have to go on and deal with. It's something I've got to do. But having those people there just to listen to you, just to acknowledge what you're going through. And yet, like I said, not try and solve it, but just be with her on the journey with you. I was very conscious that obviously my wife had to see me go through all the treatment. And talking with her afterwards and reflecting on it, it was a case of she wanted to take my pain away. She wanted to be able to solve it for me, but she knew that she couldn't. So all she could do was just kind of be there for me, support me through it. And it was the same with James, throughout the whole journey. It was just, again, just those little odd messages to say, head up, carry on, you're all good. And again, just that space, just to vent, just to talk to, just to get it out. And then you're able to then reflect on it and just calm down and just press on. But you've got it out there.
So let's talk about whether it's the tunnel with the light at the end, when, you get to a point of treatment where it's like, we've got over the crest and we're on our way out of this. Let's talk about that downhill momentum of, getting past the, chemo and radio are incredibly painful to go through, but actually you do get to a point where perhaps the battle feels like it's starting to draw to a close. What was that process like for you?
Yeah, so some of that was getting the mentality right from the word go. So it was very early on, so 2 weeks into treatment, when before the chemo and the radiation had really kicked in properly, because obviously radiation is cumulative, so you don't really get the peak effects until 2 weeks after you finished it. So 2 weeks into treatment, I was still feeling okay, and I went out for about an 8-9 mile run at that point, just to try and, for nothing else, being ill is boring. So I was just kind of laying around. So I thought, well, I'll go out for a run. And then it really started to kick in. So 2 weeks after radiation finished, and it was absolutely at my peak, and I was on the most amount of pain meds, and I was on fentanyl patches, and I could barely get around the house and couldn't eat anything, let alone contemplate going out for a walk or a run. The first turning point for me was when I came off the fentanyl patches, and I started to feel a bit more right mentally in my head. I could focus a bit more. I could think what was going on a bit more, and everything else after that was just physical, because it was just then about how much I could eat, how much I could swallow, how much I could do all that. Mentally, I was starting to get myself back in the right place, and it was at that point I thought, you know what, I'm going to get myself out just for a little walk today, or just have the dogs out for a little walk, or I can just have a little jog around the block. And it was just building that cumulative mentality of, I don't want to be sitting around anymore, because I know what's going on. I know it's just physical. My head's in the right space. I know what I want to do. I know I want to get through this. So now it's just a case of just testing myself to see what I can and cannot do, without pushing my luck, obviously. So it was just that cumulative bit around. It was about 4 weeks post-treatment, 5 weeks post-treatment, something like that. Well, yeah, the fentanyl came off. Pain relief was starting to go down, and it was a case of, right, I'm going to get out for a walk. And it was that first kind of dog walk that I went back out, and I was like, this is all right. I've got this. This is okay. Treatment's worked. Pain's going down. I'm back out and about. and just start building it out again. And it just went from there. And I think the first run I went on was kind of mid to late September. And it was just that first run back. It was about 5k, and it was just a jog, walk, just around the Lavender Fields here in Hitchin. And it was at that point where I got halfway around. I was like, this is going to be all right. This is going to be okay.
What a lovely place to do it. Those lavender fields are beautiful.
It was gorgeous.
So again, like being that kind of that sports mentality of, next challenge, next goal, those sorts of things, that kind of becomes in-baked, especially when you've gone through a challenge. You're like, okay, that was the hard stuff. Now what? Let's take us from that 5k jog and walk to we're going to do the London Marathon in less than 12 months of finishing all that treatment. What was... Take us through the conversation of that, firstly with your wife and then with everyone else around you who were like, yeah, it'll be fine.
It was exactly that. It was a case of, this is where I was before it happened, and it was almost that benchmarking element of, I want to get back to where I was. I want this to have been just a chapter in my life that I can just talk about. It was a speed bump, but didn't derail me from anything that I was doing previously. So the fact that I was able to run a marathon in the April just before, so I did London Marathon in April before for cystic fibrosis. I thought, well, do you know what? That would be a rather nice telling position to say that actually pre-treatment I'd done that, so post-treatment I'm going to do the same. And it was exactly that kind of conversation. It's a case of, well, if I can run it before I do it while I'm going through diagnosis and investigations and scans, then that's where I want to get myself back to. And the London Marathon just seemed fitting as a goal, seeing as that was the one I did before, that's the one I was going to do again after, which was nice. So, so that was the conversation behind that. It was more just a case of, it will be that milestone of it's done, it's over, mentally it's in its box, and now physically it's in its box as well.
So just take us a little bit again through the building back up on the training point of thing, but also the fundraising aspect and all the other, I guess, excitement that comes with building up to a London Marathon. Because I said before we started recording, I've never been to one before, and I'm really looking forward to seeing my first one this year. And you must get, especially off the back of that challenging year, the excitement of build up. You become perhaps more appreciative of that build up.
Yeah, and you do. And it is a case of that every little milestone, every little you set yourself a plan in just to increase the mileage a little bit, increase the mileage a little bit, increase your fitness, and it's that kind of build up is, again, mentally nice to be able to work to. It would be quite easy to just slip into the fact that treatment's done and that's it, I can get myself out to run, and then you don't push yourself anymore. There's no more challenges to it. So the build up to something like London, like everyone else, you get involved in the hype, you get involved in the Strava of it all to show that you can push your mileage, you can still get yourself out and about, and that you're ready to meet that challenge. And London is just, as a marathon, is phenomenal. The atmosphere is just absolutely overwhelming in terms of people on the streets lining it, cheering you on, the crowd mentality of it. For anyone that's running it for any sort of charity or any sort of goal, it's the culmination of all of that training and all of that planning and all of that emotional drive to do it for that reason. And for myself, having got through the cancer, obviously I'm trying to give something back, so I'm raising money for Cancer Research UK. So it's just a case of, actually, without that research and without that treatment, I probably wouldn't have got to the point where I am now to be able to do that. So it's just trying to do something to give something back. So raising money for them, again, is just that culmination of, I went through this year, it was horrible, but it was necessary, but I'm going to get myself back up to the point that I was previously, and I'm going to try and give something back to those that have made that possible.
Fantastic. And I guess, looking back a little bit, obviously, we're not at the start line yet in terms of London again, but in terms of reflections, obviously, if I'd have said to you back in, maybe January last year, before any of this kicked off, for you, what do you look back? What would you go back and say to yourself, having now run, I guess, that life marathon that you've been on?
What, before diagnosis? Yeah. I think some of it comes back to what I tell my boys as well, is do what makes you happy, find something that you like, and keep going with it. Before all of this kind of kicked off, me and James would go out for a weekend, and the running for us was just about putting the world to rights, getting ourselves in the right headspace, putting work in its box, putting family life in its box, just being able to, as I said, have that sounding board with each other to be able to just vent and chat and talk rubbish and G each other up and keep each other going. And it's just a good laugh. It's just a way of us being able to get out of the house, have some fun, keep ourselves fit, because aging middle-aged 40-year-olds, before you know it, the 50-year-old middle-aged spread is going to hit us. And so it's trying to keep us in some sort of shape that we can run with our boys as well. So back in the January, it was a case of, just keep doing what you're doing. Just find something you enjoy, keep having fun. Don't take life too seriously, because before you know it, something's going to come along and test you. And it's having yourself in that right frame of mind to be able to take that test and meet it head on and come out the other side still smiling. And that's all I've tried to do throughout the whole process, is just kind of say, you know what, we'll get through it. It's just a necessary speed bump. But if you can keep yourself smiling and you can keep that perspective, that it will all be all right.
Fantastic. Well, it's a lovely way to pull it all together, and obviously we'll include the fundraising link and the stuff to your YouTube channel and everything else in the show notes. Chris, it's been a real pleasure. Like, I was fortunate enough to be put in the world to rights with you guys before you went through all of this, and when me and James ran back end of last year and he kind of filled us in a little bit of what had been happening, I was like, obviously once we get to the point where everything's good and heading in the right direction, I'd love to have a chat with you. So I'm really grateful for your time today. It's been really interesting, and thank you for sharing so much, because I know it's, having watched it up close, it's hard for people, I think, to have gone through this and, how are you doing? And everyone goes, yeah, fine. And actually don't go those layers deeper and talk about the family, the work side of things and the friendship stuff. So it's been brilliant.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. And me and James are heading out to Slovenia in June to do another stupid 2-day ultra as well, as long as the knees hold out. So that'd be that might be a good opportunity to come back and let you know how that's all gone as well.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Chris, and look forward to speaking again soon.
Absolute pleasure, Kevin. Thanks so much.
A huge thank you to Chris for joining us there today. A truly incredible and inspiring story. And if you'd like to follow Chris's journey and get behind his sponsorship campaign, you'll be able to find the links in the show notes, as well as the range of ways to connect with him, his YouTube channel, and everything else we discussed today. We've got episodes dropping thick and fast over the coming weeks, so make sure you stay tuned. And thank you again for joining us for another episode of the Rogue Monkey Podcast.